Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Each week, our hosts will be interviewing local, regional, and national business leaders to give you an inside peek into how they lead their business to success in the ever-competitive business climate.
Welcome to another episode of Inside the Firm. This is a Monday morning edition with Jacob Parks, who is the co-author of The Growth Engine. He has over 20 years of experience leading strategy, growth, and operations at Profitable Ideas Exchange, which is PI for short, a name I absolutely love.
Thank you.
Where he has helped professional services firms such as McKinsey, Accenture, and many more build sustainable growth engines. Jacob, welcome inside the firm.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
So I did a little research on you, and you went to and then also taught at Montana State, the Jake Jabs School of Entrepreneurship. And is that the Jake Jabs, the Tiger, not the Tiger King, but the guy who loves tigers, furniture warehouse?
It is the furniture guy. It's so funny. Wow, great research, by the way. It is the furniture guy, but when I went to school there, and candidly, when I taught there, it was before the Jake Jabs money came in. So if there's any MSU students listening, I was in the Reed Hall days where in the middle of winter in Montana, they couldn't turn the heat off. So they would have to open the windows. And then later on, Jake Jabs came in and gave a bunch of money, and they have a beautiful building and it's awesome. But that was decidedly after my time there.
Okay, so there's a crazy connection. I went to North Dakota State, which you'll be familiar with because of football and all that. Yep. And we had a Reed Hall as well. So who's this Reed guy?
So that's what we should spend the rest of our time on is who is this Reed character? Was it R-E-I-D?
No, E-E-D.
I don't know what it was for us, actually. It's been a while now, but it has to be the same guy, doesn't it? In those two states?
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe a famous pioneer, right?
Yeah, that
Stop
could be.
by Fargo, keep going and go from there.
Yep.
So are you Montana born and raised then?
Was born in Spokane, Washington, but my father, like his family grew up in Geraldine, which nobody's ever heard of. It has like 60 people in, and then he bounced around Montana. So we grew up in Spokane, but my dad was always kind of a Montana person, so we were always coming over. And then, I moved to Montana State, I guess, when I was 17, and just fell in love with the state.
Yeah. What made you choose business?
A dartboard.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, but like I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a first generation college student and I was really excited about going to college, but it seemed like practical to me. Like I had heard, people in my life, my dad and his friends say like, don't go get a basket weaving degree. You need to do something useful. And so I just sort of thought, well, business seems kind of useful. If I could go back in time, I think I probably would have done finance or accounting because I think that is the language of business. And if you're going to be a business person, that's kind of the key core skill set that you should know a lot about. And I did marketing, which I wouldn't, it's fine, but I wouldn't do that again.
Yeah, it's so funny. So I went back and got my master's in construction management, and this is going to lead to some, talk
Wait,
about
where
this.
did you do that? I love that degree, by the way.
NDSU.
Okay, great.
Yep. And anyways, I knew the campus, so I showed back up, and I was in this. So I it was supposed to be statistics like 500, whatever levels you take in construction management. And I get in, and it was my first class back, and I was already outside in the professional world, so I came back. Huge hall, like 300 people, probably like 75% girls, right? And I'm like, I'm in the right place. This is awesome. And then the person gets up, starts talking, and they go, "Welcome to Communications 101." I'm like, "Dang it, this is not where I'm supposed to be."
Not where I'm supposed to be.
I find my room. It's a small, tiny room, just a bunch of nerds in there. Walk in late. The professor like has a thick, probably Russian accent, and like writing equations. I was like, "Oh, dang it, this is where I'm supposed to be."
Yep, that sounds right.
But
stats in adulthood is no fun.
Yeah. Oh, it's not. It's not. And the reason why I say that is to agree with your statement of that you should go in those more numbers games, because obviously I didn't take that communication course, but I am a business partner. And one of our principles is respond within 1 hour, and if not, within 24 hours. And I wish I could take a teacher communications course where we just practice sending out, like getting information and then either responding with, "Hey, I can get that," or "I'll find that out for you," or "I already know the answer," and drilling it in their head that communication is about speed and knowing who to talk to and find the right answer. So
It's
that was,
so
yeah, a
I
long,
love this. I used to do this exercise at MSU when I taught, because I taught communications, I taught writing.
oh,
But it's like professional writing, like doing a resume, writing a memo, all the kind of classic things. And I would do this assignment where I would give them something to communicate about a business. And I would say to them, anything more than 3 sentences will result in a reduction in 1 grade.
yeah,
So if you send me 4 sentences, you're starting at a B. If you send me 5 sentences, you're starting at a C. In business, there's only room for 3 sentences on this email, so find 3 good sentences. And it breaks their brain. They can't do it because they're programmed to write 3 to 5 page papers or 5 to 7 page papers or whatever. And so it's a skill that we have lost by virtue of sort of or pointless kind of like like word count assignments in college. I think it's actually a big problem.
well, what's so interesting about that? I've never heard that before. And I can relate it to people nowadays and myself back in the day. So when I was in college, Facebook literally just got started. Like if you might be around my age, they were literally rolling out colleges and you had
I'm
to
a little
wait for,
older than you, but I remember that.
okay, perfect. And um, what was in the beginning, when I would write a Facebook post, like, oh, you have to, this is on the internet. So, like, you have to make it cool, you have to make it pithy, you have to make it impactful, right? I'm sure the same thing is for people who are on these dating apps. Like you're reaching out, you can't seem like a dork, you got to grab attention, you can't write them a long message, you can't be weird, right? So, like, you're probably, if you're good at this, like getting it down to a couple sentences. So, like, take the amount of effort you would do in that and refine it in your business communications.
Yes. I mean, it's another thing that's so interesting about communications, because coming back to like the subject that we're talking about of growth, people cannot describe the value they create for clients
Right.
in any sort of a meaningful way. So like I will ask people, I will do an exercise with people. I say, tell me the problem you solve for clients.
Hmm.
And they'll go, well, I do these CAD drawings and they're really good drawings and you should see them. And they go deep, deep into their specific expertise. But we struggle so much to just say what problem we're solving for clients, which is I'm designing people's dream homes or something like that, an
Yeah.
architect might say, right? Like there is a clear tie into an emotional reaction from a client. But we're so focused on what we do. I actually think it's one of the biggest problems in selling professional services is we don't know how to translate what we do into the value they receive. It's just a
Yep.
hard thing to do well.
Yep. One thing, so I was talking with my business group and when we started our firm, one thing that we could do, which we was a great benefit to us, is we could rethink everything that we're doing because we were starting so young and we were starting from scratch because it was '08. Every architect that was probably under 30 got fired,
Yep.
laid off, and I'm exaggerating, but like not by that much. And so we did some cool things like we set up and this is the nerdy part that we don't, we sometimes tell clients, but we model like it gets built. We remimicked inside the program the construction sequence. So things come out correctly, which means more
Yes.
less change orders, it means more clarity, it means more speed, it means better bids, all this other stuff, right? And then I was thinking, one thing that we never did, uh, we, because what architects actually produce is the drawing set. And I've never really laid out the drawing set for clients. And I was thinking about doing that, but there might have been an intuitive reason why not. Because it's like you're giving me pieces of paper. Like I understand that. And what are you going to do? Like flip through and show some cool detail? Like it might look cool, but I don't know who are average clients, tech people, like middle class doctors, like they'll be like, yeah, but I want the vision in the house and stuff like that. And I only bring that up because like what I think you're going at is when you're marketing and selling, you have to find what is actually going to hit them.
That's right. So there's an old fable, I guess it is, that says there's 3 people, they're stonemasons. Have you ever heard this fable?
No.
So there's these 3 stonemasons, and the guy interviews him, and he says, how do you like your job? What do you do for a living? He goes, it's brutal. I'm a stonemason. I literally stare at bricks all day long. Nothing ever ends. Nothing ever changes. I just do brickwork all day.
Yeah.
Okay. Second mason, what are you doing? I'm relatively satisfied. The work is hard. It's a grind, but my family is well taken care of. I'm paid, and I'm working on building a church. It feels like work that I can be proud of. And they go to the third person, they go, how do you like your job? He goes, enamored with my job. I'm building a monument to God. What could be more important than that?
Yeah.
And it's all just perception of what we're doing, right? But I always tell people this when they're talking about how they create client value, because it's like the way you perceive the work you're doing and communicate about it is incredibly important. And if you feel it and you're sort of, even if you're not explicitly saying it to clients, but if you're just like, I'm so tired of designing another boring schoolhouse in Eastern Washington or something, your
Yeah.
clients feel that. But if you're like, I'm building this monument, your clients feel that too.
Yep. And what if you're breaking into schoolwork, and I know a lot of industry like architects, they get uh almost pigeonholed in a good way, and
Yeah,
they solve the problems for the school boards and stuff like that. But I could just imagine taking basically the inspirational talk that you're giving and then presenting it is that we're providing, I'm saying this off the riff, but essentially like we're providing the future, the education for parents' children's. And like if you relate it like that, if anyone showed up to those meetings and it wasn't just a school board and it was parents and you mentioned them, like we understand that this is where your kids are going to spend 8 hours of the day,
exactly. And
you know?
you're so talented at this. That's exactly. And I think we miss that though. We miss that opportunity to go that one layer of the experience, particularly in businesses like any sort of professional services business, engineering, architecture, consulting, whatever. Oftentimes the end user is 2 or 3 steps removed for you. Like if Accenture is working with Kraft about some strategy for better cheese, nobody at Accenture ever experiences what that end consumer goes through. And
Mhm.
so creating or thinking about the way that it impacts the end user is just a challenge for us too, because it's 2 more steps in the chain usually.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the hard pivot over, but there's basically the connection, the emotional, and then there's strategic and strategy and how to do this. Let's go internally, right? So let's say you're a business leader and you have a firm and you want to incentivize your people and you want to align the incentives so that the outcomes, because I think there's that craft part. And I think actually that's almost the easy part in architecture and maybe in structural engineering too.
Because
But
you get a
then,
building at the end, right? It's pretty cool. You get to see something.
yep, yep. But the hard part is the financials and aligning that with, how efficient people are and getting things done, and then aligning it with a happy client too. So there's always a balance because you could blaze through drawings, you could have blaze through, this could be accounting, just blowing through someone's financials or whatever it is and doing a quick job and your hourly rate went up, right? But that doesn't mean that that client is happy or satisfied. And you can't always, as a business owner, give everyone a church to work on. Sometimes it's the storage shed of the church.
Yes, it is.
And I can already like, yeah, but that is, and I don't think anyone should be offended by this. You could relate that. Well, you know, God's work needs storage.
That's right.
So like there is a way to, do that. But when you talk about, I think it's scary for business owners to talk about incentive structures. I don't think they know where to begin. I think they are so busy trying to get the work, trying to train people, trying to retain people, that they don't even know what to do there. So how do you start that conversation?
So let me just start by saying it's never good. It's never perfect. Incentive design is always wrong. And I think we are too frequently trying to apply a one size fits all approach to incentive design when that doesn't always make sense. So this guy, Oystein Dahlyard at the Chicago Blue School of Business, who has unfortunately passed away, but he did all this great research about the ways in which we compensate people on salary, on benefits, is often different based on experience, based on what they bring to the organization. And most incentive design is a bonus or a commission based on levels at the end of the day. So, one, I think we get too busy thinking we need a one size fits all approach. And I think that it's okay to have different bonus plans for different people. The second thing is, do you have an incentive or do you have a bonus? Because I think of a bonus as sort of algorithmic. We all do what makes sense, and at the end of the year, we get a bonus, right? And I think of an incentive as a one-to-one tie between a behavior or an outcome and compensation or promotion or reward. And I think firms should ask themselves, do I want to have a bonus, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with a bonus, and it allows you to kind of tweak culturally what you want to incentivize? Or do we actually have an incentive? Because there are different good and bad impacts that come from both of those kinds of designs. Um, and the last thing I would say is it has to be absolutely specific to what's going on in your business. So let's say you're a firm and you have a client concentration issue. Like you actually have four clients, but one client represents 80% of the revenue. If that client goes away, you don't have a firm, right?
Mhm.
So in that situation, you might want to incentivize getting new logos, like a commission for getting a new client, right? Because we see a ton of risk. A different circumstance might have a business with 300 clients and only one service per client. And you might want to have like a collaboration tax where you punish people for not going to market together, where they have to go with multiple service lines. But what I would say is most systems are kind of thought of as we should pick this bonus system and put it on our business, and it should be the alternative. You should start with the strategy. You should start with what you want to get done. And then you should ask yourself, what are the behaviors to get that done? And should we use financial compensation to incentivize any of that? Peer pressure seems to be the most motivating factor in successful firms in my research. Most people in professional services firms are past the threshold of making enough money to be comfortable. And so another little bit of compensation doesn't move the needle on their behavior. Furthermore, it doesn't move the needle when there's perceived risk. So if you are thinking about introducing me, and maybe I do whatever, another service that you don't provide to this client, well, you're putting your kids through college. You might not want to introduce me if you perceive some risk that my work will not be very good. And so all of that just has to start with what you want to get accomplished and then design from there.
What is um besides just financial incentives and what actually dive into peer pressure?
Yeah, so I just think like when it comes to how competitive people in these types of firms typically are, they're quite competitive.
Yep.
And so if you go as just like if you're trying to increase business development, whether it's current client business development, new logo, whatever it is, like all the different kind of incentives and gift cards and things that I've seen people try, it just doesn't move the needle like you would think it would. Sometimes it does. It depends on the circumstances.
Yep.
But what moves the needle is making this sheet sortable. Because the
Th-
first thing we all do as competitors is go in there and sort ourselves and see where we stack. And if we're in the first third, we're like, okay, I'm good. And if we're in the bottom third, we're going to get busy. And it's just a phenomenon that has been shown in research over and over and over again that if they feel like they are beneath their peers in terms of performance, they want to right that ship.
So you can have those financial incentives, whatever they may be, whatever makes sense. But then the public showing and the public ranking of it is the secret sauce that makes it move.
If your culture can handle it. This is why I say all incentive programs are incredibly bespoke.
Yep.
Um, it's like if your culture can handle a little healthy competition, it's perfect for your culture. But if you're worried that like you're going to have people squatting on accounts and not helping each other or whatever
Hmm.
because you have that kind of culture, you absolutely cannot make the data public. You have to do other things like recognition is a wonderful one. This is kind of an incentive one, but it's also a recognition one where I've seen firms when they're trying to improve cross-selling, where they're trying to improve same client growth. What they will do is they will take a team that has been incredibly successful at same client growth and port them over to that client with a lot of possibility and guarantee their comp for 2 years. Because
Mm.
why would you take a risk on a brand
Yeah.
new client
Yeah.
that you have to grow? So something like that. And then, but the more important thing about a program like that is you make the recognition about it big. We've got a SEAL team that's coming in to grow Pfizer now. It's like you make the recognition, you make as my co-author on the book, Walt would probably say, you make same client growth cool again. Because it is under celebrated inside of professional services firm. Growth within your client is expected, and new logos are celebrated ad nauseum, even if it's like a small assignment.
Yeah. That makes sense too. And it does depend on culture and it depends on what you're creative because I did worked at one firm in New York, had friends in other firms, and one it was set up where basically designers were pitted against each other. And then because then a design would get picked and then yours gets implemented. But basically they would kind of wall off and like do their design in secret so that other people wouldn't steal what they're trying to do or one up them or whatever. which was weird because the firm I was at, it was all open and you could just walk to whoever and just be like, hey, what do you think of this? You know, and they're both high-end firms. It's just a different way of doing it.
I mean, you see the same thing in like the consulting world where like as an example, there's a firm like Alvarez and Marsal, which tends to be very much an individual P&L, run your own business, have your own clients, not that traditionally collaborative of a firm. And their incentive follows that kind of strategy. And on the flip side of that, you have firms that are incredibly collaborative that are like punished in the form of compensation and other things not being considered for promotions if they are not going to market as a team. And I think both things work. Like, you know what I mean? Like I do
Yeah,
think that having the stress and the fear and the responsibility of your own P&L, well, we do good work when we have that on our shoulders. There is something that's a real phenomenon called social loafing, and you just have to get the right balance for your firm.
yeah. How would you explain, and maybe this doesn't work through your research and through advising a whole bunch of people, because a lot of this sounds to me, and I could be getting it wrong, that this is more of a management or upper level or sales or marketing incentive-based programs. But there's a lot of people who just do the grunt work, and it might be the brick mason. Um, and in every industry, there is that, hey, I'm just drawing, I'm picking up red lines, I'm laying brick. Are there incentive examples on that level that are successful? Or does
Yeah,
it not apply?
no, it applies. And I think if you think about our businesses like professional services, I don't know what they would do for a mason. I was a mason for a hot minute, by the way. There was
Yeah.
no incentive comp at all. It was just lay the bricks.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, I'm sorry, remind me the question again. I lost my train
So,
of
so,
thought.
so like, like not a mason in
Oh yeah,
the
yeah, I got
blue
you. Yeah, yeah.
collar, but in the white
Yeah,
collar
yeah.
world.
So I think in the white collar world, professional services, what we typically see is there is this opportunity to build a business development culture from the ground up and have the people who are sort of working alongside analysts and associates, not working alongside partners, but who are working alongside associates at the client, developing relationships and building a relationship bench of people that they're going to serve at a later stage in their career. Because basically, when you're 25 and you're on a project and you're talking to other 25-year-olds on the project, in 10 years, those people get executive jobs and they are your clients. And so the one thing I've seen is just like simple programs around relationship development at all levels of an organization. And it can literally be as simple as like a contest for the most LinkedIn followers, a contest for the most people put into CRM at a client site for future consideration, a bunch of different things, but it's more about developing the culture and the muscle for everybody in the organization to be developing relationships with the people they want to serve.
Yeah.
And in your world, I think it's an interesting one because y'all are artists and that changes the component. Like you're not as commerce focused. And I'm guessing that some people spin out of architecture because they're frustrated with the commercial side of it.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
and I think that you just have to balance that. And again, in your own business development culture, you have to think about the way that like giving people a space to do their art is what they care about. In the same way, actually, that an engineer wants space to do their incredibly technical work to build a bridge. That's why they went to school, is to do those things. And so you have to be very careful pushing too much commerce on
Yeah.
that audience.
And what's weird too, I think people might get more the analogy of a car designer because everyone understands every car company has, let's just say 5 models. They might have 10 models. And they come up with a new design every year and it's basically based off of, the old design and some
Yeah.
improvements. But if you think about, I hope a lot of people have seen really cool concept cars. And artists can really get in them and they look awesome. And everyone's disappointed because sometimes they'll make a concept car and they will never then execute on that concept car. And the reality of it is that there is that design, but I think why the analogy works is because everyone probably inherently knows how complicated a car actually is. You
Yeah.
have the structures, you have the windows, you have the doors, you have pivots, you have motors, you have now batteries, you have like all these
Right.
things are complicated. So once that first design is out, then you have to work with all the engineers, then all the part manufacturers, then all the, P&Ls, then the manufacturing lines. And that design now takes a back seat. And all of a sudden it's the grind. I'm sure you have to go through government compliance, and I'm sure that's terrible because I work with the government compliance and
Yes, it's terrible.
they're absolutely just, it's just the worst. And the reason why I say that is because the same is true in architecture. This, like you get that design portion, but now you have to make the whole thing works. If you've ever seen a building, like if you could take a time lapse of a building, you see all the different layers, and those lapses don't even tell the whole story because they're normally just from one angle. Like you don't see the pipe fitting goes in, you don't see like the connection
Totally.
of, all this other stuff, so yeah, I think people need to, and of course, sometimes you can get jobs enough where all you do is design. But if you don't, if Tesla, for example, one of the reasons why they're successful is because the tight knit of the design and the engineering, and they never couple. They never couple. And I think that that's one of the hardest things. And it's very hard when you're dealing with a plans reviewer to put some art in your response.
Totally. It's a very difficult thing.
Yeah, I do like going back to what you said, those incentive structures. I think actually, I wonder if we should do this because you're absolutely right. In 10 to 15 years, the people that our 25-year-olds are working with will be the ones who are getting the projects, the developers and stuff like that. What if you paid for their lunch to go out with those people once a month or something
Should.
like that?
I wholeheartedly endorse this kind of, and then particularly if you had like, I don't know how geographic you all are, but if you have like a young professionals thing that's a few people are, looking after with your clients, it's really powerful.
Yeah,
Um, Cohort connection is really powerful.
yeah.
Um, and they start to work their business development skills with that. The other thing that I will tell you that I stole from Walt also is this idea that he calls champagne failures, which we're bad at celebrating failure. And so, like, let's say you all make a decision to, I don't know, push into the Spokane residential market. I live in Spokane, the
Sure.
Spokane residential market, and it doesn't go well. It's a very tight-knit community, and after a while, you've determined that this is not a good market for you all. The tendency is to hide your tail between your legs and slink away. And we buy champagne for these moments. Cheap champagne for the
Yeah,
record, because
of
we are
course.
failing. We're failing at this time. But failing and calling it a failure is really hard. And doing that and saying we are investing no more resources in this, and it doesn't have to be a new market, it can be a new service, it can be a variety of different things. But acknowledging we tried something, it didn't work, and we've taken a data-driven approach and killed that thing is really powerful as an incentive because it gives people permission to fail and permission to take risk and permission to share new ideas that they're scared to bring up. And the bigger your firm gets, the more recalcitrant people become with new ideas. They just become stubborn teenagers who don't want to say anything because they're scared they're going to get slapped on the wrist about it.
I'll give a small example of that and then a big example because I think it's such a good point that people should understand why it's okay. So the small example is we designed this really cool remodel and the clients decided not to build it. Well, literally yesterday on LinkedIn, I posted renderings of it and I said, this project died. Death doesn't mean, a bad thing. Growth, learning, sharpen your saw, all that other stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a small thing. The big thing is what we learned when we were building is that not all blue collar, but enough so that the statement generally fits. They hate redoing work. And I understand why, because all the door sizes for this one house that we framed were framed wrong. And I had to go out there and cut them all out and then put them all back in. And it sucks. It sucks. Redoing your work sucks. And especially when it's hard. Blue collar work is more, I have worked in both. It is more hard to lay bricks than to draw bricks. It just is. It's
Yes.
just a fact of life. And the bigger lesson on this is that what Elon Musk did with rockets is, they blow up, I don't know, every other time, and they're always
Yeah.
making a new one. And the other approach is what Boeing would do is like, oh, they never blow up. Yeah, but you're stuck on the same rocket for 14 years and
Yep.
you keep redoing the same rocket. I'm sure the people, like the it's much easier to be like, hey, don't worry. We'll see if it works.
Yes.
Yeah, I know that we found a better way to do it. We're not going to make you tear that out and do it to that one. We'll do it on the next one.
Yep.
Um, Way different mind shift.
It's so true. My dad was a diesel mechanic, and his father was a diesel mechanic, and I never met my grandfather, but he always said this to my dad. My dad said it to me. He always said, I would do something for my dad, a project around the house, working on something. And he would sternly say to me, Jacob, why is there always time to go back and fix a bad job, but never enough time to do it right the first time? And
Yeah.
it rings around in my head exactly what you're saying, because actually, like, he was a mechanic, taking the engine apart again to fix something you did wrong is incredibly laborious.
Yep. Yep. I have a question back on marketing and reaching out and growth. Is I've had two type of people come to my door looking for opportunities. And meaning, we're an architect, so normally we have a lead on which project is going to get built.
Yeah.
So either engineers, civil engineers, or construction companies will take us out to lunch or whatever, and that's fine. But there's two type of people. One is sometimes the principal does it, and sometimes they have a marketing person that does it. And that's their job. And then they invite me to go golfing and
Do you play
like
golf?
what?
Do you play
I
golf?
I started 2 years ago because of my friends. Um, yeah.
I'm curious because you hear horror stories of people saying they invite me to golf. I don't play golf. That kind of thing. But go on, sorry.
Oh, yeah. I have golf stories. I am doing a multi-year troll on my friends, my college friends, because they started this golf trip, and I started with 3 clubs, and each year I'm only adding 1 club, and they're like, dude, get a whole set, and I'm like, every year, I, in 14 years, I'll have a whole set, and then when I beat them all, anyways, this is just a joke for
How
me.
are you playing good golf? Are you getting better?
Oh yeah.
How's your
No,
grip?
no, no, not good, but these are I'm getting better to like almost be every other year like I beat a new friend.
Great. I love
So,
it. Okay.
yep.
Anyhow, where were we? I digress. We could do
So,
golf all
yeah, yeah. Going back, my main question, and I'll link it to these two types of people, is one of the main barriers to growth finding the time to market? And would you prefer or recommend that the actual owner find the time and is the one to meet, or carve out a position to do that?
Well, so I think, like always, I'm a consultant, right? So it depends to me. Like, so there is this piece that Ashish Nanda at Harvard did called What Professional Services Firms Must Do to Thrive. And I think it's one of the best pieces I've ever read. But he basically breaks down our work into 4 categories. On the one hand, it's sort of like commodity work. And I would think of commodity work as staffing. Like, you all need some people. We're sending 5 people over from our team who can do that work for you. That's commodity work. And then it goes up with different kind of complexity and scale. And at the top end of the work, it's called rocket science work. And this I think of as like you all designing an incredibly unique space for a unique plot of land that has a bunch of different like government, there's a lot of factors here. Really, there's only one person in your firm who has the experience and the knowledge requisite to do this job, right? There's one person.
Yep.
If you're selling commodity work, I would encourage everybody to hire a BDR and have that person run around and play golf and follow up with people.
Interesting. I
If you're
love this
selling
take.
rocket science work where the complexity of the project can only be explained by the principal, it's not respectful of your client's time to be sending out a 25-year-old BDR who does not know anything about, historic
Rocket science.
regulations
Yeah.
in this historic district or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, what you really need is this expert. I'll tell you a story. I was making calls when we first started this business, we spun out of Arthur Andersen, the old accounting firm, and I was making calls just trying to set appointments for our founder to try to get new relationships. And I said, "Hey, Jacob Parks, we spun out Anderson. I'm calling on behalf of our founder, blah, blah, blah." And the person said to me, "If he's interested, he should call me." And I went, "You're not wrong about that." And so the other thing it comes back to is discipline around your ideal client. Who do you want to serve? I did this interview forever ago, um, and this was a person from McKinsey, and he said basically, um, it's not that complex on business development. I need to have 200 relationships. If I know 200 Fortune 500 CEOs, McKinsey's going to be really successful. And then he said, for you, Bud, it's like 30, which was painful to hear, but true. And I think what we often do is we view business development targets as a panacea, and we spend as much time on JP Morgan as we do on Sal's Pizza. and it's
Yep.
wildly inappropriate. And we chase bad opportunities with people we shouldn't be serving who are outside of our ideal client, who can't pay our fees. And we waste so much time there. If you can just sort of say, these are the 50 people in my world who matter, and I'm going to take a long-term approach to getting to know them and understanding their challenges and serving them, I think you can do a better job with your time on business development.
Do you have any advice for trying to get a hold and trying to get the attention of the JP Morgans? And it doesn't have to be that high, but just those people who they are busy, and an email is probably going to go to spam to start with.
Yeah. So one, I think you have to be honest with yourself. You have to look in the mirror and say, do I have a right to serve this client?
Nice.
I was helping a client the other day with a strategy for a program that they want to build. Um, and they said, we want Fortune 100 COOs. And I'm going, okay, so who are your current clients? And they go, well, we have a bunch of Russell 2000 clients. And who are you talking to at those clients? We're talking to the facilities people. And I'm saying, so you want to jump up 5 levels in the size of company you're serving and 4 levels in seniority. You don't have a right to do that. You have to do more work at those different levels and earn the right to get the senior relationship. So one, ask yourself honestly, do I have a right?
I
And
love
then
that
two,
answer.
personalization matters. I got the other day several emails in a row that said, Jacob, your take on professional services really resonated with me. 3 in a row. My whole take is personalization. And so, like, one, you have to have the right, and two, you have to have something that gets you in the door in an effective way. And we all know the stories. Like, we all remember the movie Wall Street, where Bud Fox is buying flowers for Gordon Gekko's assistant, so he can get that one meeting. And you don't have to do stupidity like that, but like, it's not that hard with available public information to find out what kind of sports teams they like, where they live, what they do, charity organizations they volunteer for. You can find typically some angle to try to get in with someone. And also, you got to have patience. I can't tell you how many times I've reached out to people 7 or 8 times. And right when I was about to give up, I get an email that says, thank you so much for staying on top of me. I really want to do this. I just haven't had the availability or the bandwidth. And so you have to have kind of what I call a doctors on a plane mentality, which is I wake up and think these people need my help. And I'm not going to be salesy about it. I'm not going to like a doctor would never get on a plane and start taking blood pressure for no reason,
Ah,
right? But if
yeah,
someone on there is sick, which happened to me a few weeks ago, um, then they're going to help. And I think of the same way in professional services. Like I can help these people, they need my help. I'm not going to be a hack salesperson, but if they express a problem that I can help, I'm going to help them.
awesome. Awesome. It was an absolute pleasure having you on. If anyone's listening, wants to reach out, connect, or follow you, what's the best way to do it? And if you want to leave our audience with anything, top of mind, a love note, whatever you want to do, I'll let you take us out.
Okay. Thank you. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jacob Parks, very simple name, Profitable Ideas Exchange. So that's typically where I am most active. It's not a love note. I wish I had a love note. The thing I would leave people with is we just did a bunch of research for this book, The Growth Engine. And I would just tell you, I keep making this joke, but it's not really a joke. People should be in prison for the lack of investment they do in client feedback. We think we win on our own brilliance and we lose on price, and it's not true. And there is so much value to be gained by asking our clients how we're doing and what their problems are. There is nothing more dangerous than 3 consultants designing something at a whiteboard without any client input. So that would be the thing I would leave you with.
Absolutely love it. Thanks a lot, Jacob.
Thank you very much.